Welcome to today's episode of our Engine Week series. Today we talk with Thomas Hauklien of Edge Performance about their Yamaha and Rotax engines. Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode of Engine Week, the Engine Week series here on the Experimental Aircraft channel. Very exciting to talk to Thomas of Edge Performance today. Very excited to even have him on camera, as it's kind of hard to see him these days. He's so busy working and building engines that he barely gets on camera. So I'm very happy that he's able to carve some time out of his build schedule to talk to us. So welcome, Thomas.
Hey, thanks for having us, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Now, I know you're in Norway. What town or city in Norway are you based?
We're based in a small town called Skotselv, and it's about 50 kilometers from Oslo, our capital city. So
Okay.
It's in the southeastern part of Norway.
Okay, so it's not in the high mountain fjords or whatever you call that area of Norway.
No, luckily not. We're kind of quite central here. Yeah.
Got it.
Low side,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, you've done a great job of sharing what you do over there on social. I feel the photos and that you do are great, showcasing what you do, and it seems like you're like next level with the details. So I feel that's getting you a lot of attention. If it hasn't, I'm here today to help get more attention to that, because I think it's really interesting what you're doing over there. So let me start off by just saying, if you could tell us, who you are as a company and what you do with the Rotax and now Yamaha engines.
Definitely. So we're a small company, as you said, based in Norway, who was established back in 2004. Our roots were from street car racing, building race engines and fabricating performance parts. And back in 2008, I took my pilot's license, and I kind of started to transition into the aviation industry. As I was kind of shocked to see when I first started flying that we're sitting here in so-called modern planes, with glass cockpits, Garmin stuff and whatnot, and sitting up front there is pretty much a Second World War air-cooled post motor. So I was just in complete shock to see that they're still running this kind of technology that we separated with in automotive back in the 50s, 60s, or even earlier. So that's kind of where I saw that we there's a gap in the market. Just going back to the company part, we're a small company, like I said, in strong growth. We've seen exceptional growth over the last couple of years. We're 4 employees at the moment, and we've just hired a 5th one. We are now in the middle of the building process of constructing our new facility in a different town, not that far away. It's about an hour drive from us. And it will be at a fairly large, very nice airport in a town called Notodden. And,
very nice airport. You shared some pictures with me. In fact, I'll probably ask to send those over to me again to share, but it looks like some type of Norman Rockwell of aviation, if you will. You've got this beautiful lake that I see has a ramp for seaplanes to go into a taxiway. It's in the middle of a valley with these mountains around it. It's a very picturesque airport.
Yeah, it's really great scenery over there. We have high mountains with snow on there, and we have glaciers further in the mountains, and it's a really nice place. We're really looking forward to get moving over there, because we're cramped with space at our current location. The business side is, we started off with doing fuel injection kits for the carbureted engines, especially like the Rotax, the Jabiru, and the Volkswagens.
Okay.
And from there on, we kind of just snowballed into doing performance enhancing products. We did lots of parts, and we have a great focus on efficiency. So that's kind of the background of the company. Yeah.
And how long have you been doing Edge Performance in business for yourself?
So since 2008, we've been doing Edge Performance for aviation. It was in the beginning of 2017 that I quit my daytime job and did edge performance full time. So prior to that, I was doing this, on the evenings, on the weekends, in my spare time, during vacations. So it basically got to the point where it was, kind of make or break. You want to pursue your career, in business, or do you want to, try to go full time with this this dream of yours? So
at some point in time, you have to go all in and just
yeah,
go for it, right?
definitely. Yeah.
So what exactly, going back to the engine, what exactly do you do for the Rotax and then also the Yamaha? Like, what do you offer?
So for the Rotax line of engines, we started off by doing fuel injection kits, because back when we started, the 912 IS wasn't on the market, so there were no fuel injected engines available. We later on developed a turbocharger system, much like the 914, but it runs with fuel injection rather than carburetors. And we also do big bore kits, which is basically different cylinders and pistons, where we change the displacement, and it just took off from there. We do camshafts, we do high flow oil pumps, secondary alternators, and quite a lot of bits and pieces for the Rotax.
And anywhere you see could need a little bit of improvement or efficiency, you put some focus and effort into that.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. And then for the Yamaha, what are you doing? You're doing a couple different things for that, including your own, I think, correct?
Yeah. So currently we have 3 Yamaha-based engines. We have the Apex 150i, which is basically just a bone stock Yamaha Apex motor without fuel injection and intake system on it. And then we have the Apex 200 Ti, which is a 200 horsepower turbocharged engine, and then the big brother, the 300 Ti, which is 300 horsepower. So initially now we're only doing, turnkey ready complete motors. We have had quite a few customers now, ask us if we're willing to sell individual components or some kind of DIY kits and so on. But, being in aviation, we feel that it's a huge liability, it's a huge risk, and it's a huge responsibility for us as a manufacturer to ensure that the engine gets the best possible conditions to have a safe operation and safe life.
Hey everyone, let me take just a moment here to thank our sponsors that make all of this possible. Great companies like Airworx, Airtech Coatings, Clemens Insurance Agency, ACME STOL Creek Aviation, NFLIGHTCAM, Whelen Aerospace Technologies. So take a moment after this video to say hello to all of them, and remember to check out the affiliate links in the description below. And remember, just build it. Let's get back to it.
Sure.
And with these small displacement, high horsepower, high boost engines, there's it doesn't take a whole lot to blow up an engine. So it's super critical that it's built right, it has the right clearances, and not least that it's mapped and tuned properly. So not a single engine leaves our facility without extensive either dyno testing or runtime on our test bench to ensure that all engine parameters and values are within spec.
Sure. So if you start selling components and then somebody, does, no offense, but some type of shade tree mechanic work and just throws something in there, then all of a sudden your name is printed on these parts on this machine, and that doesn't do well. Yeah, I think Sonics had an issue with that early on with their Volkswagen, where people were getting junkyard Volkswagen engines and throwing on this or that, and all of a sudden it had the logo of their brand of Volkswagen on there, and it didn't work out very well. That's understandable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you got a couple different models. Did I see that you're working on something of your own with the Yamaha, or is that?
No, well, I mean, what we've been doing lately now is to have the Apex engine that we designed to have it digitized. So now we have it all in 3D CAD models, and this is for us very crucial, especially to get enter the OE market. To get airplane manufacturers to consider installing or offering these engines, because no one's going to spend the time, money, and effort to just buy a complete engine to see if it will fit inside the cowling, to see if there's clearance issues, weight and balance, and so on. So therefore, we invested the time and money to have it all digitized in 3D now, so we can send over a complete CAD file, and then the manufacturer can, kind of work around it, see if they can, put together an engine mount, or see if it will fit inside their existing cowlings and so on.
Is this for both the Yamaha platform and Rotax, or specifically Rotax you're talking at the moment?
No, this is specifically for the Yamaha. The Rotax,
Okay.
we have all 3D available, so we've kind of covered that. So the Yamaha has been like the last.
Well,
Big
on
project
that,
now.
let me ask you, because over here, I assume it's the same thing over in Europe, in the European market. I'm drawing a blank of the acronym, but I think it's ASTM. Does this have to go
Yeah.
through an ASTM certification process to allow those manufacturers to use that engine, correct?
No, it doesn't. Here in Europe, we have the ultralight segment, which is more equivalent to the experimental in the US in terms of we have weight regulations.
Okay.
And maximum a two-seater. So there are certain countries and regions where they have national regulations or national requirements of certifications. But we do currently actually hold, I think it's 9 type certificates for various countries for both ultralights and experimentals. And some of those are France, UK, Finland, which others? Germany, we have several. So we've done different type certifications in various countries to allow these engines to be used in different airframes. And then we have other more, yeah.
So as they say, you're legit. You've actually done your homework. You put the work in, and you try to get this kind of mainstream going on. So it's a legitimate thing, not something just in your shade tree garage putting these things together.
No, definitely, and I have to give a huge shout out to our dealer network. So I think what's kind of been key to our success is that we have a fairly large team now of hardworking, dedicated distributors and dealers all around the globe, pretty much, who does edge performance full time. With sales, installation, maintenance, and whatnot. So we wouldn't be able to reach out to all ends of the world, from Norway. So they deserve a big round of applause as well for doing a fantastic job.
So obviously you've put a lot of time into tweaking and fine tuning Rotax. How is it that, Rotax is probably practically $billion business now.
Yeah.
They own the market for light sport, especially, and a lot of experimentals. So how is it that a company of that size and such a corporation, that you are able to tweak these and make them more efficient than them with their who knows how many team of engineers and that kind of stuff? So and I'm not trying to put down either party here. I'm just curious, like, there's such a big entity. How have you outdone them in your research or attention to detail, or uncovered these little quirks to work out the bugs?
Yeah, so I think if we look back we need to kind of isolate these in 2 groups. So we have the carbureted engines, the 912 UL, ULS, and the 914 turbo. And then you have the newer 912 IS and the 915 IS. And if we look at the older carbureted Rotax engines, they were designed back in the 80s and improved, upon the 90s and the early 2000s. And running carburetors is not gonna give you the perfect results in terms of emissions, fuel consumption, and all that stuff, because you're just, you have poor vaporization of the fuel. You don't have good altitude compensation. As you get up higher with a Rotax 912, you can see the EGTs start to drop pretty drastical, because there's no mixture control there. Everything's kind of automated, but it doesn't work effectively up at higher altitudes. And it doesn't take into account, different humidity, temperatures, and pressure and so on, which are all key factors to calculate the exact amount of fuel that goes into the engine. So by running fuel injection on these engines, we're able to not only just control the amount of fuel going into the engine, but we can also time each injector cycle, precisely and accurately, so the fuel isn't sprayed onto the intake valve, or it sits in the intake and goes back to its droplet form. it enters the cylinder, high pressure, vaporized. So, it's way more sufficient and the fuel doesn't vaporize going through the intake cycle and so on. And the other, nice thing with the fuel injection is that, we're able to trim each injector individually, much like, you're buying a set of gamma injectors for LightCam or Continental, which are all flow matched. So this is another big benefit that we can offer with the fuel injection over the carburetors. If you talk to anyone who services or maintains a carbureted Rotax, they all know that there's a big variation of coloration on the spark plugs, on the front and rear plugs, which is all a result of the original intake manifold design, which gives uneven distribution of air and fuel. So it's just these things that makes us or gives us the edge, I would say. And obviously the other thing is that, we don't necessarily focus on making the most affordable or economical parts. We want to do high end. We make things the way, we would like to have them in our planes. And we use exotic materials. We hand fabricate TIG weld parts rather than, doing more heavy and bulky casted parts and so on. So these are kind of the things that gives us an advantage in terms of efficiency, weight savings, and so on. And if we look over to the IS line of engines, they're great engines. Nothing to say about that. They are way more efficient, more reliable, and they're becoming tough to overcome. So I think the reason our turbocharged engines, especially, which kind of competes against the 915 IS, I think the reason for those being quite popular at the moment is, cost-wise, they're more or less the same, probably a few $1,000s less. But we did, we went with the stock 912, 914 geometry and dimensions. So putting our STI engine into a plane which has a 912 or 914 would be a direct replacement. It doesn't have the longer gearbox which 915 has. It's somewhere in 15 to 20 kilos lighter installed because all our components are made with exotic materials and with weight in mind. So these are kind of the main advantages now that makes our engines popular, and especially now with the STOL thing going on, where performance and weight is
Sure.
critical.
Very critical. So you're trying to become maybe the Koenigsegg of aircraft engines. Who's your next door neighbor over in Sweden, right?
Yeah, they're awesome.
They started out with a Ford 5-liter engine, and now it is their own.
They did,
right?
Yeah. Oh, it's pretty amazing. So I like to kind of compare us to not in terms of financial state or anything, but if you look at the Mercedes, they have the side spring, the AMG, which kind of takes the already awesome Mercedes, and they pimp up the motors, they put styling on them, they customize them, which is kind of what we do in a fashion.
Got it. Yeah, that's a good analogy there.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of moving through, I have a list here. I actually have a list, which it's always hard to stick to because aviation conversations are just always so interesting.
Yeah, sure.
One of the things that's obviously very popular to talk about is how do you get the horsepower rating with you? That's a no-brainer. You show it. You actually have a dyno to be able to share the horsepower, and you do a good job of sharing the real numbers in that. What are the weights or installed weights? I mean, I personally got to go visit Steve Henry, and he just happened to have an engine just arrived from you, so we put up on a scale, and I think it was right about 199 pounds. Okay, this is the fully turbocharged 300 horsepower Edge Performance Yamaha. Everything needed to run it. Has the turbo on the other side there, which I'll pan around. Intercooler and radiator, engine mount. Everything's there. Sub 200 pounds. On the turbo with the intercooler and everything stacked up on it. I think literally it was everything but the hardware. So I know that engine weighs right around 199, 200 pounds. But what would the 150 horse weigh or normally aspirated and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So I put down some numbers here, and I think it's easier for people to relate and compare when we talk about the weight difference compared to engines that they're already familiar with. So if you look at the 912 STI, which is our 155 horsepower turbocharged Rotax conversion, it's about 2 kilos or about 4 pounds lighter than a stock 914. So that's not bad considering we have 155 horsepower over 115, and we added fuel injection on top of that. Then we have our EP914 Ti, which we took to the market as a direct competitor to the 914. It's based on a 912 UL, so the same core engine as the 914, and it puts out 126 horsepower with the fuel injection. And this engine, we actually managed to get 6 kilos lighter than the 914 with all the same, gearbox specs and the slipper clutch and the heavy duty starter, the ring mount, and so on. So it's super competitive in terms of, weight and performance. And then we have our normally aspirated line of edge performance Rotax conversions, which are the EP915 and the EP916. And those are in average 2 kilograms lighter than a 912 ULS with carburetors. And what I would like to mention when we talking this over is that our EP915 ECI engine, it's a very popular 120 horsepower normally aspirated engine. We get a lot of questions and comments about, why doesn't the engine look like a 915 IS, as you named it, 915. And the reason simply is that we introduced this engine before the 915 IS came to the market. And our idea about the name was that it was a edge performance, obviously, the 9 for a 900 or 912 series engine, and the 15 was to indicate a 1500 cc displacement or 1.5 liter engine conversion. So that's kind of where the 915 originated from. And then a couple of years later, Rotax introduced the 915 IS, which has caused some confusion. So just wanted to get that out straight. Yeah.
So you think that they're watching you?
Yeah, who knows?
Maybe.
Yeah. So moving over to the Yamaha conversions, the EPEX 150, the normally aspirated engine, has a dry weight of about 150 pounds. That includes the voltage regulator, the oil tank, and kind of the accessories. It does not include the engine mount, the radiator, and the oil and coolant lines.
Okay.
So that would kind of be our firewall forward items. And the EPEX 200 and 300 are basically the same engines, except for some differences in the engine internals and the mapping. So we see they coming in at about 100 and, depending on options, but in the 170 to 180 pounds range. Hanging on the scale here as we ship them out, ready to run with harness, ECU, and everything.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really amazing power to weight ratio for any engine, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. And another thing that I would just, want to use this opportunity to get out there is that having the 200 and 300 horsepower Yamaha conversions available is not going to be a replacement for anyone flying behind a Lycoming 540 or a Continental 550. It's not designed to be a alternative to those engines. It could probably replace a 320 or 360, but mainly it was an engine that would take on the competition with the 912, 915s, the UL power, the Vikings, the Jabiru 6-cylinder. So it's a light compact engine, which is in terms of size and weight comparable to a Rotax. It has the 300 horsepower for takeoff, which is really nice if you're flying, say, floats, amphibious, or especially if you're into this STOL racing like Steve Henry does, then you definitely benefit from the high horsepower. But it's not possible to run them at these kind of power levels sustained or continuously. So,
and what is the real, just coming from somebody who's very well versed in engines and the science behind it, what is that limitation? Is it the heat that it creates? You just can't keep it cool at that horsepower rating, or what ultimately will be the breakdown of it, of keeping that RPM or horsepower rating?
Yeah, pretty much cooling,
Okay.
cooling of the internals, cooling of or temperatures, coolant, oil temps, and so on. And it's such a small, compact engine that if you were to run at 300 horsepower, over prolonged periods, it would ultimately fail. It wouldn't be able to absorb the heat because you would need more, meat to efficiently transfer that heat out of the engine components and internals.
Sure, sure. So
Yeah.
one of the questions I had is, what kind of testing has been done to ensure the safety and operation of these engines? Because it is taken from one, we're talking about Yamaha specifically, taken from a snowmobile of
Yeah.
all things, right, now into an aircraft. So what kind of things have been either tested or done to know that this is a safe engine operated at these parameters? And have you determined a TBO, or what is your suggestion on a TBO at this point?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. There's a lot of questions and concerns about that especially if you go to those Yamaha forums. Initially, I was probably the biggest, skeptic about these Yamaha engines for use in aviation, and just knowing about these kind of RPM ranges they operate at, made me scared. I thought it definitely didn't belong in an airplane. But it wasn't until Steve Henry, really started pushing me and convinced me into making him a one-off motor for his competition airplane. And that's kind of when I saw the true potential in this motor. I got the chance to work on it. We did extensive dyno testing. We did a lot of testing on our test stand with a propeller and load on. And we kind of took off from there. So what we did was, we reached out to a lot of credible people who's been in the snowmobile industry for years and years, have been doing, racing, drag racing, tuning, and we pretty early saw that the track record of these Apex motors were extremely well, and people have been running them turbocharged since 2006 up until today, and they're starting them in below 15 degrees and then just flooring them. They're really tough and well-built engines. So what we did was we kind of identified the weak links in the motors, which are obviously the engine internals, your head bolts, your head gaskets, and those kind of things, if you want to push them to these kind of horsepower levels that we've been achieving. And obviously we quite early met a lot of skepticism from the Yamaha aircraft group with pushing these engines so far. Initially we never even thought about launching the 300 horsepower to the market. It was kind of a one-off for Steve Henry. But obviously, when people see him doing these achievements that he's achieved, there becomes a demand.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
honestly, just the stock configuration, if you have 150 horsepower,
yeah,
is worthy of the attention, right? Just because the power to weight ratio.
absolutely.
And then you got
Oh, yeah.
the 200 horsepower version, which you could run, I would assume, a little bit with less concern than the 300 horsepower one. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So, I mean, yeah. So what we did is we took it up to just shy of 400 horsepower. And we did a lot of testing on the engine itself at these power levels. We held it there for quite long. We did some endurance runs. The other unknown factor here was the propeller speed reduction unit, which Teal from Skytex develops, and we're using his gearboxes.
right.
And neither us or Teal knew if they were going to be able to withstand, the torque pulses, the torque, the power, the RPM, the load, if it would overheat and so on. So this was another, big uncertainty when we first started to look into the Yamaha Apex engines. So we also did a lot of ground testing, and now Steve Henry has been running 2 of his motors for quite some time now and put some 100 hours on them. And we haven't had any hiccups, any issues whatsoever with overheating, with contaminated oil, with particles in the oil. So everything's looking quite good at the time being. But being in such an early phase with this engine, we don't feel comfortable about putting out the TBO there. We can certainly put out a expected TBO, but it wouldn't have any hold to it.
Then what would you say to the customer or people who are flying this, the things to look for? What are you monitoring if you don't have a set TBO necessarily? What are you monitoring to see the health of this engine? Simply oil samples, or what are you looking
Yeah,
at?
so no, yeah, we pretty much recommend our customers to run them as a TBO motor. So, kind of on condition, meaning that you do regularly compression and leak down tests. You do oil analysis. You check for particles in your oil filter and your magnetic drain plug. And by doing so, you can early on see kind of trends develop. If you would have metal particles, shavings coming off in your oil filter or your gearbox magnetic plug, if you would have, blow-by on the valves or the piston rings, you would kind of see signs of premature wear going on. So these are the kind of tools we have to determine the TBO. Being a small company that we are, we don't have the ability to, run engines for thousands and thousands of hours in test cells like they do on the major engine factories. So,
what is the
yeah.
intervals of checking, like the compression and all this stuff? Is like every 50 hours, 100 hours, or what are you suggesting as a maintenance plan or a health plan, I guess, if you will?
Yes. So we've said for those who use them for, say, normal operation, they're not like Steve Henry, he could rather have just a toggle switch in his throttle, can be on and off. So, he's kind of, the cool thing with Steve is that he's really pushing them to the limit. So, if he can't break them, then who else can? But we basically tell our average customers to do these checks every 100 hours. That will give us an early indication on anything going on with the engine. So, but knock on wood, we haven't had any issues or any unexpected things arise.
Well, it's definitely an exciting platform, an exciting option. They sound amazing. The very, very first time that I heard the Yamaha in person was at the Gainesville, Texas STOL show, and the weather was in and out, and we were inside the FBO waiting for the weather to clear, and I guess it had. And all of a sudden, I was right next to the door to the FBO, and I heard this really loud noise fly by. And at the time, Steve was still having an issue with his exhaust muffler popping off. I think he's not even running a muffler at this point. And right as he passed the FBO, the muffler popped off. So it sounded like a Formula One car shifting gears. Going by and I was like, I ran outside. What the heck? Oh, it's Steve.
Yeah, no, it's something. It definitely doesn't sound like a conventional aircraft, but it's it's a very interesting and promising platform. And now obviously with Teal and the other guys who are actively on the Yamaha forum, now looking into the 3-cylinder, the 2-cylinder Yamahas.
Yeah,
it's really interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm following that too.
Oh yeah,
I've got an idea for a competition plane myself that might utilize something like that. I'll talk to you off camera about that. But real quickly, guys, honestly, thank you for staying with us. We've gone in like over 30 minutes. Honestly, I told Thomas we need to stick to 15 or 20 minutes because I know the short attention span everybody has. But there's so much information, so it's kind of hard to stick to that. So we've gone 30 minutes, but real quickly, just a few more things I want to cover that I think is really important. Oh, we've got Thomas on camera, finally on camera. And that is, what are the price points really quickly on the Yamahas? And if you can give us in Euro and US, and then also the Rotax, just to kind of blow through that real quick to give people an idea of what to expect.
Yeah. So if we start from the top, our EP915, the 120 horse normally aspirated, is 29,000 US dollars or 24,500 euros. The 916, so it's basically the same engine but with a 1.6 liter, 130 horse, normally aspirated, retails at 31,500 US or 26,500 euros. Our EP914 Ti, the 126 turbo, is 31,500 US. And then our EP912 STI, the 155 turbo, is 36,000 US.
Okay, and that comes in the crate just as it would if you were to buy one from Rotax, the same options or whatnot?
Yeah, they come even more complete than from Rotax because we add or we include, like fuel line fittings, dual fuel pumps, fuel filters, vacuum lines, and a lot of accessories, programming cables for the ECU, and quite a bit of stuff. So they come really complete. So basically all you need to complete those installation would be a radiator, an oil cooler, an intercooler, and some plumbing for that. Otherwise, they're complete with everything you need to get them running.
Okay, very good, very good. And
And
go ahead.
yeah, and for the Yamahas, the Apex 150i is well, I must have got the conversion wrong here. That would be 18,500 euros. So I would think that's what 20 some thousand US.
Okay.
The Apex 200 is 26,500 euros or 31,500 US. And then the Apex 300 Ti is 36,000 US.
And that is accessorized similarly to the Rotaxes of what you include in the package of the pumps
Yes,
required
yeah,
and that
that's
kind of stuff.
Yeah, pumps, lines, voltage regulators, oil tanks, and so on.
And on that, really quickly, again, I know we've gone a long time on this, but this is a question I get a lot about these. What do you do to this? Because I understand there's a couple people, there's not a whole lot of people doing this, but basically put a used engine with a gearbox and send it out the door. What are you doing to these engines? Is it still a used engine and you just clean it up and put a gearbox? What do you do to it? Is it a new engine again?
Yeah, no, so there were 6 brand new Apex motors sitting in a warehouse in Netherlands that we were fortunate to purchase, but those are all gone now. So moving forward, all engines are based on used Apex motors from snowmobiles. So we have 2 options. We offer to just dismantle them and do a full overhaul of the engines. And then we also offer to do full, ultrasonic and vapor honing cleaning, making them, shine like they were factory new. So the customer can kind of decide if they want to put the extra money to get it, shining like a brand new motor, or if they're happy to have some light corrosion on the surface and so on, although it's completely rebuilt internally. So, we replace all bearings, all gaskets and seals. We replace pistons, piston rings, rods. We redo the valve seats, reshimming of the head, and depending on the
you
condition
do
of
turning of crankshafts, do you oversize bearings and then nitrate, or what kind of stuff is happening there?
we don't actually touch the crankshaft, given they are within the wear limitations from Yamaha.
So it's basically a check of yes or no. If this doesn't meet in spec, toss it, and then okay.
Yeah, we've torn down 2006 motors with high mileage, and there's no sign, there's no measurable wear on either the crankshaft, the mains, or the bearings and everything. It's we see no wear on them. The cylinder bores are all circular and round, and it's just amazing how they hold together. So, and being that the core engines are quite inexpensive, if you compare them to an aviation engine, it wouldn't have taken a lot of damage to the core engine to make it not worth to repair. So say it's had a spun bearing on a connecting rod or a damaged crankshaft or whatever, we probably wouldn't even bother to salvage the motor, because getting a second one which is in good condition and serviceable would probably end up costing less than doing replacement of these main components.
How many of these you think have been manufactured and will be available? At what point in time will you run out of this, or will you not, because of the scope of remanufacturing these and repurposing them for aviation?
So
it keeps you busy, but there's enough of them out there that can keep you busy for decades.
Yeah, I think there is. Initially that was one of my big concerns, because everyone were so determined on that we could only use the Apex motors manufactured between 2006 and 2010. But we've actually done some studying, and we've built now 2 Apex motors which are based on the 2011 and newer core engines. So we've managed to work around the later engine, which were produced from 2011 to 2018. So I don't see any chance of us running out of core engines for tens of years. There's so many million snowmobiles sold there. So even though you had to pay twice as much as average for a snowmobile to get the core engine, it would still be a affordable way to get hold of the engine.
And that whole world is completely unknown to me. I live in Florida. we don't have snowmobiles. We
Yeah.
have wave runners, which I think I've mentioned to you in the past. That might be another option, because it's a very, very similar engine in wave runners, and they've built probably the same, if not more, of those as well. I mean, it's for the marine industry. Maybe the cooling is done a little bit differently, obviously, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind trying
definitely.
to shop around for a wave runner, which are plentiful here. The snowmobiles, not so much.
Yeah, I see.
So, all right. Well, thank you very much for getting on camera with us today and giving us all the dirty details of what's going on over in Norway. And I would very much love to, hopefully in 2021, travel isn't an issue, and come visit you in your new beautiful facility over there, and maybe do some flying. Because I understand you are also building an airplane, correct?
Yeah, another one. So we have a Northern Cub on order, which was intentionally scheduled to be delivered now in November, but it's been postponed to January. So the kit is gonna come, pretty much pre-built from the Slin factory.
Okay.
So we're gonna be doing, the suspension, the brakes, the engine, the avionics, and so on. So yeah, we're putting together the first Northern Cub with the EPEX 300. So that's gonna be really exciting.
Do you think at some point in time you might put that in a shipping container and bring it over to the States, and you and Steve go head to head?
Yeah, that would be funny. No,
I'm serious.
Yeah, no, I mean, who knows? It would be good entertainment at least. So I'm nowhere close to being a STOL pilot like Steve and those guys are. We unfortunately here in Norway we're not allowed to fly. In the outbound. You can only land on regulated airports or in a cornfield if you know the owner of the landowner.
Okay.
So we have limited access to flying into the bush and the wilderness and doing off-field.
Is that because of all the land is owned? And I mean, every land here is owned too, but you're not allowed to land on others' owned property like that, I guess. Even state owned.
It's more national regulations. So they don't allow to run a UTV or ATV in the woods, or snowmobiles in the woods, or
really
there's only certain waters you can land on with seaplanes on. So it's kind of sad for the aviation community, but it is what it is.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, Thomas. Well, thanks again for all the information. I hope that you stay busy and continue to do what you're doing, and bringing new and exciting options for us in the aviation industry.
Yeah, we'll do our best for sure.
All right, everybody, thanks for joining in on this episode for Engine Week, and tune in for tomorrow's. This is Saturday, so we got, I think, 1 or 2 more left. So thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks for watching this episode of Engine Week. Return tomorrow for another episode. Remember to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.